The Brachiosaurus from Garuga's Additions Ascended mod is one of the largest dinosaurs in Ark Survival, and what it lacks in mass compared to the Titanosaur, it makes up for in height. But is this colossus based on reality, or is it a work of fiction? Let's find out. In 1899, the American paleontologist Elmer S. Riggs was on the search for Eocene mammals and sent letters to the mayors in western Colorado inquiring about any possible leads. He received a response from Stanton Merrill Bradbury, a dentist from Grand Junction, informing him that dinosaur bones had been discovered in the area since 1885. Riggs was skeptical, but his superior was eager to add a large dinosaur skeleton to the Field Columbian Museum, so he raised the money needed and sent Riggs off on an expedition. In June 1900, Riggs and his team set up camp at an abandoned ranch, and not long after, his field assistant, Harold William Menck, found an exposed humerus whilst out on a horseback prospecting trip. On first inspection, Riggs took the bone to be a badly preserved Brontosaurus bone and moved on to another location. But in late July, he returned to investigate more and soon discovered it to be of enormous size. At this point, a puzzled Riggs thought he may have just discovered the largest animal to have ever lived. During the initial excavations, the humerus was misidentified as a femur due to how large it was, and if it hadn't been for the unusual size of the ribs that were found in association with it, then the specimen would have been discarded as a poorly preserved apatosaur. Once back in the labs, however, it became clear that the bone was indeed a humerus, and this made the fossil incredibly exciting. The specimen that was discovered consisted of a right humerus, a right femur, the right hip bone, the right shoulder bone, the sacrum, a selection of vertebrae and several ribs. In 1901, Riggs shared the report noting the unusual length of the humerus compared to the femur and the extreme overall size of the dinosaur. He did not publish a name at that time. This would come in 1903 when he named the type species Brachiosaurus altithorax. Brachiosaurus comes from the Greek words brachion, meaning arm, and saurus, meaning lizard, and it was named this to draw attention to how unusual the length of the arms were for a sauropod. Altithorax means deep chest. The bones were prepared for display, but they were not mounted like other more complete skeletons. But in 1993, a full plastic skeleton was created and put on display in the museum before it was moved to the B concourse of Terminal 1 of O'Hare International Airport in 1999, where it still stands today. Since the early 1900s, 16 different Brachiosaurus specimens have been discovered, but they are an uncommon find and often only consist of a few bones. So that's how Brachiosaurus was discovered, but what did it look like? The fossils that have been discovered of the Brachiosaurus are incomplete. The holotype or original specimen is only about 20% complete, so what we understand about them comes from other species, mainly the related brachiosaurid Giraffatitan. Another thing that we need to bear in mind is that the holotype remains appear to represent a subadult, and therefore not the full size that it could have reached. Like all sauropod dinosaurs, Brachiosaurus was a quadruped, with a small skull, a long neck, a large trunk, muscular tail, and long, slender columnar limbs. They are estimated to have been between 18 and 22 metres, or 59 and 72 feet long, and between 9.4 to 13 metres, or 30 to 43 feet tall. The tallest creature alive today is the giraffe, and they can reach a maximum height of around 5.5 metres, or 18 feet tall. Estimates for their weight suggest the maximum body mass would have been between 56 and 58 tons. For comparison, a male modern-day bush elephant weighs about 6 tons and a double-decker bus weighs 12 tons. Unusually for a sauropod, their front legs were longer than their hind legs, and this meant that their trunk was inclined, with the shoulders being much higher than the hips. Their neck exited the trunk at a steep angle and would likely have been held in a slight S-curve. The neck would have been very long, even compared to other sauropods. This neck was supported by elongated neck ribs that ran down the underside of the neck, attached to the vertebrae at one end and the muscles of the neck at the other. Their heads were comparatively small compared to the rest of their body, but it is still thought that they would have been 70 to 80 centimeters or 27.5 to 32 inches long and around 55 or 21.5 inches tall. They had pronounced frontal bones extending forwards over the eye sockets and a somewhat blunt snout. Brachiosaurus had 52 chisel-like teeth, which it could replace as needed. The shape of their teeth was designed to enable them to bite off the huge amounts of plant matter that they needed to eat. Brachiosaurus, like other sauropods, was a herbivore, feeding on foliage well above the ground. Their browsing range was probably from 5 meters high and up, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't have fed at lower levels if needed. They shared their environment with many other sauropod species, so its specialization of feeding at greater heights would have been essential to avoid direct competition with other species. Their diet likely consisted of ginkgos, conifers, tree ferns, and large cycads. It has been estimated that they needed to eat between 200 and 400 kilograms or 440 to 880 pounds of plant matter a day. Their jaw only allowed for up and down motion and not chewing, so they would have bitten the foliage off and swallowed it whole. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, it was believed that sauropods like Brachiosaurus were too massive to support their own weight on dry land, and would have had to live partly submerged in water. Riggs, who discovered the Brachiosaurus holotype, was one of the first to identify that most sauropods were fully terrestrial animals, and in his 1904 account of Brachiosaurus, he points out that their hollow vertebrae had no similarities to any living aquatic or semi-aquatic animals, and their long legs and compact feet were well suited to terrestrial locomotion. Since the 1950s, it has been widely accepted that sauropods were land dwellers. It wasn't just their large size that made people think these prehistoric behemoths were aquatic creatures, though. Their nasal openings are large and placed on top of their skulls, similar to some other aquatic animals, and it was thought that they could have acted as some kind of snorkel while the creature was submerged. However, it is now thought that the nasal openings do not necessarily correlate with where the external nostrils may be positioned. No soft tissue impressions have been found, but it's not uncommon to find bulbous or enlarged tissues around the nostrils of modern-day reptilian species. It has even been suggested that some sauropods could have had proboscises, or trunks. The trunks of modern elephants are controlled by their facial nerve, and their skull has a large opening to accommodate the enlarged size of this nerve. It has been demonstrated that the facial nerve opening in the skull of Diplodocus is too small for a large enough facial nerve to control a trunk. The opening on Giraffatitan, however, is larger and could have accommodated a sufficiently sized facial nerve. But until soft tissue impressions are found, we'll never know. Brachiosaurus fossils have been found in the Morrison Formation of western North America, and this is a distinctive sequence of Upper Jurassic sedimentary rock. Between 154 and 150 million years ago, when Brachiosaurus roamed the Earth, this area would have been a semi-arid environment, with distinct wet and dry seasons. Brachiosaurus shared this environment with a number of other sauropod species, including Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and Supersaurus. Other contemporary dinosaurs include carnivorous theropods such as Ceratosaurus and Allosaurus, as well as herbivores like Stegosaurus. Vegetation across this area varied, from forest-lined rivers to fern savannas with occasional trees. Fossilized green algae, fungi, mosses, horsetails, cycads, ginkgos, and several families of conifers have been found in the formation. We don't know what caused Brachiosaurus to become extinct, but it's likely that it was a combination of factors, including climate change, oceanic anoxic events, competition for food, predation, and volcanic activity. We do know that the climate and oxygen levels of the oceans were changing at this time through marine fossil records and extinction events happening in the waters, and these would have also had an impact on the terrestrial ecosystems too. Brachiosaurus is an iconic dinosaur, and the first dinosaur ever seen by visitors in the original Jurassic Park movies, and it is amazing to see it walking the jungles and the grasslands of the Arks. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, why not hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment about which creature you're most excited to see in Extinction. If you're new here, welcome. Why not subscribe so that you don't miss my future videos? But for now, I'll see you in the Ark. Take care.